That is freaking
Oh,
believable.
wow. Wow.
Unbelievable.
This is the moment that Magnus Carlsen traumatized Hikaru Nakamura.
This is trauma. This is incredible.
It's traumatizing.
The moment when for the second time in the Speed Chess Championship final, Magnus went and did what he had absolutely no right to do.
Magnus has taken two positions and completely wrecked Hikaru.
So just how good was this game, and how much can it tell us about why to this day in 2025 Magnus Carlsen remains the only player who could ever traumatize Hikaru Nakamura when it came to online speed chess? Let's dive in on this one. Magnus had the white pieces, kicking off with d4, Hikaru daring to play this King's Indian defense. This is roughly game 6, 7. Hikaru's giving the center. They've got about 5 minutes each, plus 2 seconds added per move. That's known as increment, aka excrement, if you get things mixed up. And after knight f3, castles, many lines here for white. Magnus goes for this one, taking control of g4 and the oft overlooked i4. Now we get this expansion in the center, and this is the point. You fight back from afar here, get white to push on, create a few holes, keep your eye on the dark squares. a5 now keeps an eye on the pawn push. Watch this guy, because after bishop e3, there he goes, headed for the promised land. But after Magnus chucks the goat man down the board here, Hikaru drops back, anticipating a bit of this action, and he just mixes up the order with those knights. Magnus now copies, no one's got a clue what's going on, and this one now hits the c5 square, leaving this guy stranded. Too deep for me over here, and especially this next move. I mean, with the white pieces, if you want to attack, surely you do a bit of this action, rook behind the pawn. But Magnus plays the mysterious rook move. Now it looks kind of aggressive, but it's quite slow. Hikaru sidesteps anyway, away from that x-ray. Magnus does a little pawn push, maybe keeping an eye on a knight jump, hinting at this one day, if you can arrange it. Hikaru now gets his bits out, great etiquette at the board, queen c2 and pawn to c6 starts attacking that center, trying to break it down. Magnus castles queenside here, and you know you're in for an exciting battle. Andreas spinning those beats, everyone's having a party, takes on d5, and when you run this with the all-powerful mighty engine, it wants to go with the knight. Leave the pawn as a shield for the king and queen, but Magnus dares to take with the c-pawn here. Now he opens his bishop, but you also open the c-file. Hikaru immediately pounces by sliding over with the cannon. Always play king b1, keep Lord Hans Feingold very happy, and now after a4, Hikaru clamps on the light squares, heading for a theatre near you soon with this one. So Magnus starts to fight back over here, turning up the heat there. Sure, the queen could take that pawn, but looks very dangerous. f3 supports the next one, and you're soon going to bring the heavies to the h-file. Or you could go this way, prepare pawn b5, pawn storm, but neither played. Hikaru plays f5. Now this is daring, and this is weird. Surely you take with the g-pawn, open the file, open the rook. You can even sack the exchange in many lines. It's really exciting chess. Push f4, just try and rip open this king. But Magnus plays pawn h5, completely different approach, allowing Hikaru to close the position and win the bishop pair. Knight takes back now played, because this is his point. He wants to rip open the h-file, then push on with the pawn, put this bishop in jail is the point. And now after rook f7, just making a little bit of wiggle room, Magnus is in time for bishop b5, connecting the rooks, wants to bring one here, maybe push f3, get the queen to join in after knight c4. It's primitive, but effective here. So king g8 from Hikaru, running, takes now played, queen takes back, knight c4, the wheels are in motion. This one also threatens a monster fork on here. Lovely trio of ponies, by the way, reminiscent of these three top players. They love to visualize together, and so Hikaru responds with queen d8, keeping an eye on the jump. So Magnus goes with the second knight. They're converging on that weak backwards pawn. Bishop covers. Now rook h1. The wheels are in motion. Both players with their plans. Don't take on g5. This base of the chain collapses and bad things start happening. So queen d7 is played, and it's classed as a big mistake, but only if you play knight b6. Allowing the knight to hang, taking it was a threat that was just set up by queen d7, then winning a rook. But hang on, rook c7, and conventional wisdom is don't give two minor pieces for a rook. Usually the minors are better, but white now generates this huge attack, and it's enough to actually justify the sacrifice. Here's one sample line, and then you take the pawn. Or if here there's this sneaky move, bishop's pinned, so you're crashing through. Now I won't keep going, but there comes a moment where you have only moves to keep the white attack going. So that's why Magnus didn't do it. It's very risky. Black always had counterplay as well. So instead, with this one attacked, he just drops back. Doesn't go for the forkaroo. Instead, we now see rook c7 played, and after knight b6 hitting the queen, she slides back. We get Magnus proceeding with the same themes of the attack. Looks incredibly scary. So Hikaru fights with this one. Wonderful outpost, and yes, you could slide, but then the rook is coming over. You're okay. These are doubled, connected. So instead, Magnus plays a different move, but it is a blunder. His best is actually this queen d3 to b5 idea. Offer in exchange, play an endgame, some weak pawns. But this one is played. Now it looks really nice because the knight is now loose. You've won a pawn. This one can always hop back. That sort of thing. But there's a big problem. It's knight d4. You save the knight and with tempo against the queen. And you might think, fine, exchange sack. But if you go for that one, well, pawn takes and you can't even move the knight. It's pinned to the queen. So you do have to move. Queen h2 selected. Threatens mate in 1. So rook h7. Now queen f2 back. And the point, the reason that this was a big blunder, pawn b5 now traps it. It only has one square where it can't be eaten, but then you're diving deeper into the enemy camp with no way back behind your own lines here. So how to proceed? We see rook takes on h7 played, rook recaptures, knight b6, but here comes the lady preparing to munch on that one. Magnus decides to take this pawn and therefore give up this knight, because after knight recaptures, the queen covers the other one. And anyway, we see knight back here, spawning the seahorse once more, and Hikaru just keeps getting spooked at this moment. Could take the g-pawn. Yes, you run into rook g1, but you are okay. But he goes knight d4 here. We get queen g2, now covering the pawn, rook c7, and this fascinating battleground has been drawn. Hikaru's got an entire extra bishop. Magnus has got a couple of connected passes. First, this is going to drop. Defended. Attacked. Defended. Now knight b3. Defended. Or moved, let's say. Knight hopping back. Hikaru thrashing a bit. He should start going for some pawns. King a2 now played. Queen a6. Nasty pin. So Magnus brings that Franken queen back to life here. And after queen a7, Hikaru only goes and wins the side quest of putting all his pieces on the chocolate squares. He wins an all-access tour around Magnus Wonka's factory. And now we get knight d2. And amazingly, Magnus is completely unafraid of initiating exchanges here. goes for loads of them. Normally that benefits the side with the extra material, but Bro's the GOAT of the endgame, somehow knows this is where his best chances lie. This is a bit of a stinker. Really better was keeping the knights on the board, or let's say taking, first, or taking the pawn. That's what I mean by keeping the knights on the board. Letting white take, win a pawn, fine, but king f7 can come and bishop f6, and you actually get a lot of activity. But Hikaru doesn't find any of these ideas here. Instead, he plays this. Few of Magnus's fans start bleating as the ladies leave the board. He loves an endgame, grinding like a grandma, and again Hikaru missing the most pertinent moves. This one best. Not only can you whisper anyone for a knight maneuver, nerdy chess notation joke, but you get your most advanced pawn running fast. However, this was played, and now Magnus gets running with these outside passes. There they go. Bishop f2 played, looping around to try and get them, but before you can say let's get ready to rumble, Hikaru's just under fire now. They're running. Here they go, all the way down the board. His king's just in time, but here comes Magnus. Now we get a check. This one's running, just stopped by the king. Pawn a6 now, and we reach the moment where Hikaru makes a dreadful mistake. Now it's a really difficult position, low on time, but the best way to go here is with bishop to h4. You hit the knight here, and after it's saved, somewhere there's different options. You can then take here. You can also start running the f-pawn, bring this bishop back around. Here's just one sample line. You can't let the king get c8 in that line there. Here we go. Eventually, black always queen first, and you can corral these pawns, make the second queen soon. Long sample line, but after a6, bishop h4, way to go. However, g5 is played. Now, it looks really natural. Push, if takes, push, 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 move the bishop. But Magnus can now get a hop in. This is why he practices. This is why he visualizes the pony maneuvers deep in the Oslo training camps. Moments like this. Now to hold the draw, not the win, but the draw, you have to bounce with bishop e1, head round like this. But g4, no it's not, completely mixing up. Forgot that wasn't played. Bishop h4 played, holding a pawn, but Magnus chops. And Hikaru now pushing, now getting checked, now retreating with the king, and now resigning the game on move 62 because Magnus is completely winning. This check is on the way, and then the queen is being made. You can't stop it with a knight. It's on the wrong circuit. You can't stop it with a bishop. And if you try and run your own pawn, well then anyway, or sorry, let's look at this, king c7. This is what I had prepared. Now you're stopping knight d7. Well, no, you're not actually. It comes anyway. Here's a sample line, and ultimately it's white queening first. Two queens. This is close, and it queens with check, but it's just not enough. You can actually force through a mate. Probably Hikaru could have played some more moves, but he was completely dejected, resigned in this position. Hope you enjoyed this game, and have a look at the video on screen in case you missed one of the games of the year played by the young 14-year-old Yaskar Nerdamas on screen now, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.